welcome today to our Lunch and Learn with KP. I'm so excited to have everyone here today. My name is Monet, and I'm a cybersecurity apprentice here at Kinetic Potential. And today's theme for the Lunch and Learn is Women in IT and Tech Leadership, a topic that's not only timely but incredibly meaningful as we do continue to create space for more women and allies to grow, lead, and thrive in tech. And we're honored to hear from our truly inspiring leaders who have carved out their own paths in the industry. And during today's conversation with Tameika Hollis, we'll be exploring the stories behind her journey from the pivotal leadership moments to those challenges that she's faced and the lessons that she's learned and the habits that have helped her when it comes to staying grounded and confident along the way. So, welcome, Tameika. I would love to start off by just telling a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll get started with some questions that we have for you, especially some questions from the audience towards the end for a little Q&A session, and then we'll do a wrap up.
Well, thank you, ladies, for having me. I have this slide that I show people. Let's see if it works. Can you all see it?
Yes.
So who is Tameika? And I'll use this chart to kind of tell you a little bit about me. But my current role, I am the Chief Information Officer of the Aerospace Corporation. We are 5,000 employees. We are a federally funded research center headquartered in Chantilly, Virginia. $1.3 billion is our purview and spectrum. Who is Tameika? I grew up actually not far from where I'm sitting right now. I was born in DC, and then I grew up in Prince George's County. I went to Florida A&M to get my undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering. After that, my dream was to work in the automotive industry. So I moved to Michigan and I worked for Ford. I tell people it was interesting. That was in the 1990s, early 90s. And we were driving around between buildings at the Ford plant in electric vehicles. And I was working on control theory for how to get cars to run off of fuel cells. And so I enjoyed that. I don't know if any of you are from the Midwest, but Michigan is very cold. And it was more, I think, jarring for me to have come from Florida. I think if I had gone from somewhere a little colder, it might not have been that bad. So I decided if I couldn't work in the automotive industry, I wanted to work in space. So I moved to California and I went to work for Boeing Satellite Systems. They're in El Segundo, right in LA. And it was a great opportunity to design satellites. So I know a lot of you know XM Radio or DirecTV. So I worked on the bus side of the satellites to develop the control algorithms for how the satellites work, stay in orbit where they're supposed to be. It was very exciting work. Then I decided in that area, there's a lot of companies based there. And so I jumped over and I went to work for Raytheon and I worked electro-optical design. And as I go through this, you'll hear all the different types of systems that I worked on based on just having a mechanical engineering degree. I decided I missed being on the East Coast. And so I had moved around every couple of years now. And so I wanted to find some place that I could be there a little longer. And so I decided on Northrop Grumman based in Baltimore. And I chose them because at the time, it was a big center for space within the Northrop Grumman portfolio, really close to home. Still was able to live in Prince George's County. And so I spent 17 years at Northrop Grumman. From running programs in space, running a radar system engineering group, running programs for the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines. I ran a infrastructure organization around R&D for the company. And then I decided to go into cyber and looking at our international program. So I went to Australia. I worked in our UK office, and then I spent a lot of time going back and forth between Maryland and Fairfax, Virginia. After doing that, I realized my goal, if you had asked me, and somebody asked me when I first came to Northrop, what is your goal? And my goal was to be a vice president. And after I got to that level at Northrop Grumman, I was like, okay, I achieved the goal. But my daughter was about to go to high school, and my son was entering middle school. And the schedule can be very demanding. I think my most famous story is I have two that I'll share with you guys. I got told on a Thursday that I was flying to Australia on Saturday. And I asked how long was I going to be there, and they were like, till you fix it. Right. And I have kids. They're in the middle of the picture. And my other one was I had a team that did a great job on a Navy program. We like worked crazy hours for a whole year. And the sector president wanted to reward the team. And I said, that is awesome, right? I had given some, she called me on a Saturday to get the names of the people. And I was at my son's soccer game because we had finished, and I left my work phone in the car because I'm trying to be focused on being with him. And I had so many calls from people saying, what I'm like, it's Saturday at 10 a.m. Like, and so those two kind of reasons or made me start thinking about maybe I want to look at something else for more work-life balance. Um,
Mhm.
and I used to get called by headhunters all the time, and I just would ignore them through LinkedIn or things like that. And I decided, okay, I'm going to respond to people. And I only got on LinkedIn, actually. I always forget this one because Northrop sent me to Harvard before I became a vice president to just learn about in their general managers program, to learn about how to run a business, case studies. It was 60 different people, and you had to live there. So I lived there for a month. I came home, and then I went back for another month. So a private equity company called me, a headhunter, and I was like, what is private equity? Private equity is where investors think that if you put a couple companies together, 1 plus 2 equals 3. So if you combine them together, you can multiply from a revenue perspective because they can feed off each other in capabilities. I thought that sounded exciting. Actually, I had two opportunities at the same time. And what made me pick, that's Illuminate on my slide. I picked Illuminate because at the time, the current CEO was General Dynamics vice president. So he worked in the same aerospace and defense area. And he had done two transactions. So he had sold two companies for them, and he was ready to retire. So they said, you can be COO and learn the business, and then you can be CEO. And I was like, oh, look at that. Like, who wouldn't jump at that opportunity? There was a lot of other questions I should have asked later, but
Mhm.
I actually was supposed to give my notice to Northrop on March 13th, 2020. Everybody knows what that day is, right? That's when the world shut down. And I
Mhm.
was like, let's just wait a minute. Um, so after 2 months, I was like, COVID's not going away, right? And I was excited to still do this opportunity. And so they still wanted me to come on. And I said, all right, I don't know about if anybody has kids, but I was the teacher basically at home for COVID, right? And so I said, when school ends in June, I will start. So on June 6th, I started as Chief Operating Officer for Illuminate. So Illuminate is a cyber and product and services business that's global. So we had our headquarters was in Herndon, Virginia, but we had offices in LA and San Francisco, in Edinburgh, Scotland, and in Israel. And so I started just learning the business virtually. Had to go through some reductions in force. I led those, thinking about where we can get efficiencies. And then as soon as the first COVID shot came out and the UK opened the borders, I was on one of the first planes to Scotland. And I was there for a month to learn the business there. We had a big engineering center there. Um, And so that was September of 2021. I spent a month in Scotland. I came back and told the board all the things I thought needed to happen with the company. And they said, okay, it's time for you to be CEO now. And so in January of 2022, I became CEO of Illuminate. And my job was to get new customers, transform the business, and get ready for a sale. Um, I'd never done any of those things before. Transforming a
Wow.
business I had done within Northrop Grumman, but not really a big overhaul from external and branding. So it was a great opportunity for me to learn something different. In October of 2023, I sold half of the business. I tried to, we started the, I'll say, sale process with a broker for businesses because there are people who existed. That's all they do. And we tried to sell the whole company, but people were interested in either they wanted to do products and they'd rather buy hardware, right, sensors, or there are people who were interested in services, which are people who sit with the FBI or the Department of Defense, and they sit in government facilities and they advise the customer on what to do. And so I sold the services part of the business in October of 2023 to another private equity company that made it. Crimson Phoenix is the name, and I helped support them through the transition for 9 months. At the same time, I was trying to sell the product business, and I sold that in February of 2024. I finished transitioning all the businesses in May of 2024, 2 weeks before my daughter graduated from high school. So it was a great time to be
Nice.
off. Yeah, it was like 2 days before prom. So I could really it was exciting to take time and like spend time with them. We did some exciting things over the summer. I dropped her off at college. Uh, and then a company called the Aerospace Corporation. Actually, a friend told me about it because executive positions, sometimes they're posted on LinkedIn, but a lot of times they also have people who use their networks to connect with people. And one of
Mhm.
my advisors from Illuminate, she said, there's this lady you got to meet. And I reached out and we had a 20-minute phone call. And so you got to think about the value of like how you summarize your experience very succinctly. And she said, well, there's this CIO position. You have a great cyber background. You used to work for partner with aerospace when you were at Northrop. I don't know if you'd be interested. She's like, I'll connect you with the recruiter. 20 minutes we talked. I met with the recruiter and it was a whirlwind for 2 weeks. And they made me an offer. They're like, can you start like tomorrow? And I was like, no. Right. I had planned 6 months off. I was going to do all these things. And you know how you make those lists when you're off of like all the things
Yes.
you're going to do. And I said, I need a little longer than that. So they gave me till October 7th um, to join the Aerospace Corporation. So I've been there 7 months next week, and it's been a whirlwind. So at Aerospace, I'm in charge of all of enterprise IT within the company, and I also run all of security and safety. That is unusual, not usual, but we are a defense contractor, so you can't really do IT without thinking about security. Um,
Hmm.
it was interesting because the my predecessor had been at aerospace 39 years. So I'm coming to an organization that has been stagnant for a long
Hmm.
time and have been I just got some of our results. They're like, she knew everybody's name. And I was like, that's just not possible in the first 7 months. It's just not gonna happen.
Hmm.
I have 400 people in my organization. And so that's right, that's not gonna be possible, but just trying to shift as digital transformation. I was able to observe. So one of the things I love to do when I start a new job is I read the first 90 days. It's a great book that really helps you level set. Every time I move jobs or companies, I read it to just help me remember the things that you're supposed to do when you start a new position, questions to ask, people to partner with, so you don't trip over it and come in like guns blazing all the time right away. Um, and then in March, I had to brief the board on what's my strategy for the organization for the next 2 years. So not much time. Slides were due in February, so I really had 4 months roughly to come up with a strategy for the organization. And now we're in execution. So, aerospace, I have people in 8 different locations across the US. So I don't have to travel globally, but the headquarters just moved to Chantilly. We were in El Segundo for 59 years. So I still have a majority of my team in LA. So I do more traveling than was advertised right now, but
Mhm.
I enjoy it. The two things, and then I'll let you guys ask some questions. What do I do for fun? I'm really passionate about STEM, which is one of the reasons I'm talking to you all today. I think there's not enough women and women of color within STEM, and I want to do my part to make sure that I am contributing and paying it forward. I speak at the Black Engineer Awards conference. I'm sorry, Becoming Everything You Are. That's the new name. I've spoken at
Mhm.
NSBE and SWE. I'm on the board of STEM CX. I'm just passionate about making sure people know that there are opportunities for people who look like you. Um, and then I love volleyball. So I used to play in high school. I still play now. My daughter calls us the old lady league, but that's okay. I play on Monday nights. We take the summers off, and my church actually has pickup volleyball twice a week. So it's something I do to be active. I actually coached my daughter's team when she was in high school. I told them I'm done.
Mhm.
But it was something I could flex with when I was CEO. But now that I am CIO and traveling a lot more, and it's just not possible. But it was a great experience for us to do together. And so my kids, I have a daughter, Michaela. She is finishing up. She'll be home in a week. Her freshman year at North Carolina A&T as a computer science major. And my son is finishing his 10th grade year. He's in Eleanor Roosevelt Science and Technology program. He doesn't know what he wants to do yet. Um, I'm all about exposing him to a lot of different things, but not pushing because everybody has to have their own journey. People were saying my daughter was choosing between FAMU and A&T, and they're like, "Are you upset?" I said, "I did shed some tears." I said, but it's her experience, and so I want to make sure it's something that she loves. So, I mean, I've been over 25 years working in this industry, and I still am passionate about aerospace and defense and just engineering in general.
Wow. Okay. I don't even have the words to like sum up all this greatness. I appreciate you taking the time to walk us through your journey. And I feel like we were all alongside you when you were reaching those milestones. And I'm over here like cheering for you. And I know other people in the audience were cheering for you too, because it's an amazing experience to have. So I want to go back to that first moment to when you stepped into leadership. Was there a moment where you realized that you were ready to lead?
So it hit me, yes, I'll say yes. It hit me at Northrop. Um, I think two reasons. First, I gained more confidence in myself, right? You're working with other engineers and you're like, I know that, right? I know
Mhm.
that. Or you see a couple of like in your mind bad decisions and you're like, I would do this differently. It would work out. Um,
Mhm.
and acting like a leader before you have the title, right? So taking, and that doesn't mean just telling people what to do, right? It's about taking initiative, it's about being accountable, and it's also about stretching yourself so people can see you in that role. I always talk about if people can't see you doing it, it's a lot harder for them to, especially for us, for them to see us in those leadership roles.
Mhm.
It
I
can be a
love
little
that.
scary, right? You're
Mhm.
like, and I got a lot of the first program I managed at Northrop. It was really small. It was classified. So I had this one little skiff that had one office, a conference room, and 4 cubicles.
Mhm.
And of course, I was the most junior person, but I'm leading this program. And
Mhm.
every one of the people who work for me, so it was a small team, 6, came into my office and in a not so discreet way asked me how did I get there, right? And I had to,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't take it to heart, right? They were really what was your resume, right? Why'd they put you in this office?
Yeah.
And I've been here 20 years and I'm sitting in the cube outside your office, right? And I had to run down my resume and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get offended by it. And that's actually when I started making the slide when I start new teams
Mm-hmm.
because I'm like, let's just go through it so I don't have to meet with everybody individually, so you can just quiz me on why I'm here. I started doing the
Mm-hmm.
slide right after that when I realized I don't need to have 20 different, as my teams got bigger, right? I don't need to have multiple conversations on why did she get chosen?
Mm-hmm.
Because people are going to ask, right? They're going to look. I get the looks now. They're like, I put my braids in sometimes now. And my son even says, Mom, I don't like that look. You look too young, right? I was like, thank you, right? But but it's they're gonna ask you, no matter age or
Yeah,
not, they're gonna ask you why are you here? And some people are more respectful with the way they ask, and some are not.
absolutely. I can only imagine. Thank you for sharing that piece with us and showing how you didn't take it personal to heart. You just presenting the facts. And it is what it is. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. All right, cool. And so, has there been one or two lessons that leadership has taught you that you really didn't expect to learn in taking on the leadership role?
Yeah, I always thought that working for a woman would be like so empowering.
Hmm.
And so I was a manager and I was working for another woman of color. And I was really excited to be, it was one of the reasons, it was kind of an ass voluntold role, but I was like, all right, it's great. Like I was the number 3 woman in charge and there was a Indian woman in charge and a white woman as her deputy, and I was next. And I was like, we're gonna rock
Hmm.
it, right? We're
Yeah.
all moms at the time, we were all married at the time, and you're like, yes. And we had a lot of struggles. And I think part of it was my own persona of what I thought women executives had to be and how they would treat other women and mothers.
Mhm.
And it wasn't the case. I had 2 instances with my director that really had me shift. And I'll tell you the instances and then I'll tell you what I learned. So the first was we were putting together a 4-story antenna to go on top of a Navy ship. Um,
Mhm.
Northrop had done it twice and taken it back apart because of errors. And I was brought in to lead the team that put it back together and tested it. And we
Mhm.
had 1 year to do it, or they were like, Northrop, you're fired. And
Mhm.
I was like, all right, this is a challenge, but I'm going to try something different. It wasn't in space, it was with
Mhm.
Navy. And the leadership team, we were like, we need a daily meeting because we had people working 3 shifts and there was just a lot going on. And my director said, okay, we'll have this daily meeting. We'll have it at 4:30. And Tameika, you'll run it. And I said, I have to pick my kids up at 6. So if the meeting starts at 4:30, I have to leave at 5 because it's $5 a minute if you late.
Mhm.
So I gotta go at 5. No, no, no. The meeting starts at 4:30. Okay. So I would start the meeting at 4:30. We would go, and then I would get up and I would walk to my car and I would call back into the meeting from my phone. And I would drive. I was picking up my son. He was 1.5. So he would be babbling, half talking. I'd pick him up,
Mhm.
put him in his car seat, and I'm going to get my daughter. She's 4. And they would be talking to me like, this is my meeting, right? So I'd unmute and they just hear whatever's happening in my car, right? I just saw my kids, haven't seen them all day. I was shushing them and they would, right? But they're 4 and 1. What do they know about mommy
Mhm.
shushing them? So how long do you think that
Mhm.
means stay at 4:30?
Okay.
They got tired of hearing my kids in the background, right? But I was just like, I suggested 3:30. So, right. But I was surprised. Like I told her the reason why, and she was just like, and I was like, okay. She was in the meeting, so she's hearing my kids too. After 2 weeks, they were like, "Oh," because my husband ex at that time, he was in grad school, and so I was picking up my kids. That was my life. And so I was, that threw me off. And then March came around and we were working really late. And I was like, I gotta go. And she was like, what? And I was like, it's 8 o'clock. I have to find a bakery or a grocery store that still has cupcakes. Tomorrow's my daughter's birthday, and she has to, you have to take cupcakes to school. And I'm gathering up my stuff to leave. And she's like, Tameika, it's okay to be a bad mom. And I didn't say anything. I just left. I found a place, cupcakes, took my daughter to school the next morning. She was all excited. She had her cupcakes with her friend. And I came into work and I went in her office and I was like, close the door. And I was like, don't ever say that to anybody else. I was like, people look up to you as a woman with kids that's working in a leadership position. And I said, it's not okay for me. I don't want to be a mad mom. And she was like, my twins are about to graduate high school. They fine. And I just, so what I learned from her is some leaders teach you what not to do. Because those are things that the things and the things she said to me and the way she acted, I learned that I won't be like that. And sometimes you learn what not to do from leaders as well as what to do. I- She's frozen. I can see most of you.
I have, oh, can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. You're frozen on my screen, but I can hear you now.
Okay. Okay, no worries. Maybe let me just turn my camera off. Maybe that'll give me a little bit more bandwidth. But thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate that. Let's move on to the next question I have for you because you've talked so much about various challenges that you've learned. Can you highlight a challenge that has helped shape you as a leader so far?
As a leader, you're not going to know everything, right? And so I talked to you about I started in automotive, then I moved to aerospace, then I did Navy programs, then I did cyber. You as a leader, you have to recognize you can't do everything and you have to try to fill your team with the people that are going to make up the gaps for you. Right. And understand you got to be honest with yourself about what are the things that you don't enjoy doing. What are the things you don't need to do, you don't like to do. And the things you don't know, you have to find the people that also are willing to teach you some of it, right? You can't run a business or be a leader and not know anything within the purview. So who are the people that will teach you? I remember when I started at Northrop in the cyber division, there was a guy that taught the cyber class. And I was like, I can't sit through a whole 6 months of what is cyber. Because I asked for the role.
Mhm.
I was like, this cyber thing's taking off. I want to learn it. I want to come over here and ingrain myself. And they wanted me because I had executed programs. And so they were like, come over and teach us how to better manage our programs. And I was like, teach me cyber. And so we had like lunchtime. He was willing, right? I had to find somebody willing to take the time and that I could engage and ask questions. I asked questions to learn. Sometimes people take that, they get defensive. And so what
Mhm.
I've learned is I started off by saying I'm an inquisitive learner and I ask questions to learn. It kind of relaxes them a little bit so they don't think, "Oops, she's looking for something, she trying to," and I'm like, "No, I ask questions to understand." And that was something
Mhm.
like people generally, a lot of people get defensive with questions.
Very great point to put there because it's very important to learn how to ask questions, but how do you know how to ask questions when you don't even know what questions to ask, you know? So
Yeah.
just trying to be inquisitive and be curious will definitely help you for sure. Perfect. And then so let's now talk about some inspiration. Who or what has inspired you most along your journey?
So I have two women. I actually talked about them recently at work when I spoke on the Black History event. I have two mentors from Northrop Grumman that I still keep in touch with. And what inspired me about them was their tenacity to just, they started 70s, 80s in engineering, both of them. And just, it was unheard of to see women in leadership roles. And
Mhm.
and I asked them, right, cold call, kind of, they see me moving in the organization, and you get a lot of
Mhm.
pushes for your time, right? And so I asked one of them to mentor me. And at first she was
Mhm.
like, I don't really have the time. And I could understand, right? Because I sometimes go through roles where I don't have time to mentor the way I want to. And,
Mhm.
but I watched her. She ran manufacturing for all of the hardware in Baltimore. So she built radar, her team built radars, they built satellites, they built the gamut. And she didn't do that, right? She didn't go to school for that, but she learned it and she got the respect of all the people in that entire 17,000 people person facility to respect what she was doing. And that was just empowering to me. And I wanted to learn to be like her. That was Shanetta
Wow.
Davis. And the other is Lenny Hainsworth. So when I asked to do cyber, everybody thought I was crazy. And at the time, she was running the cyber business. And so
Mhm.
I asked to come work for her. And it was a different role for me. I wasn't in charge of the business, I was assisting her. And
Mhm.
I asked for it, right? I asked for a role to learn, and she took a chance on me. And I respect her for that, but I watched how she was the one who taught me the right way to ask the question. I watched her. She seems very soft spoken, but I watched her ask questions of people that made them really think and make them understand how powerful and how much she knows without even, I have a lot of energy, but she's just like,
Mhm.
she's so calm, like it's just, it
Mhm.
it's deadly. So I'm still learning
Mhm.
that part. We have lunch sometimes, but like she's on the board of SunTrust now and ADP, and I'm like, after she's retired, she's just a force to be reckoned with. I'm like, I'm like, I want to be on boards when I retire and be assisting Fortune 500 companies, right? That's my next goal I'm working towards. But and I think it's also things when you think about who your mentor is or what you're aiming towards, as you progress in your career, it's going to change. And that's okay. Don't think about that as a bad thing that your goalposts move or they move sideways, right? It just depends on what's going on in your life and how you're feeling and the people that are around you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And now let's take it all the way back to your younger self. What advice would you give your younger self stepping into a leadership role?
I'll give one leadership and one just max out your 401k, like
Yeah.
always.
Mm-hmm.
And start early. Like some companies will let you as an intern invest and
Mm-hmm.
do it. I am sorry I didn't start. I worked for TRW, which was Northrop when I was in college, and I was like, oh, I need all my money. I
Mm-hmm.
can't put anything in there. And ooh,
Mm-hmm.
what that would have done for me, that was before, right? Just a little bit. And so I would say
Mm-hmm.
invest. Um, the leadership piece of me would have, I wish I had realized earlier how important peers are.
Mm.
So it took me a while to understand, and it's something I still have to work at, that peers can trip you up. So if
Mm-hmm.
there's an initiative, I'm working one now, and I'm like, "Ooh, it's
Mm-hmm.
not. I wanted to go. He agreed, and then he's reneging, and I'm just like, I want to just steamroll over him because that's a Tameika. I'm like, just go, right? But
Mm-hmm.
you never, as peers, somebody might pop up when there's a role, the next role opens. And if you didn't manage that relationship with your peer appropriately, you're not, can't like all of them, but try to work respectively. If that peer becomes
Mm-hmm.
your boss, you toast.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Absolutely.
that's something it took me a while to learn that and learn how to do it effectively. And it's something I still like. It's as I think more as women, we we have our I'm going to do this today, right? I got my calendar, I got these things to do, and um the others will take time to meander around. I got to talk to
Mm-hmm.
people. And it's important, and sometimes when I get busy, I have to remember to do that. Or at one time when I was running a radar group, I used to have to tell my admin to put that on my calendar, like, Tameika, get up and walk the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so when we get so focused and we get so busy, we forget about those things of, I should go out to lunch with a peer. I
Mm-hmm.
should do this. And those relationships are important, and you have to spend time and energy on it when sometimes we're just like, that's a waste of time. But the guys do it
Mm-hmm.
all the time. And we just like, that's not important. The work is important. I got other stuff going on. I don't need to spend time on that, but you do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you have experienced so much and are juggling so much and handling and managing so much. How do you stay grounded and confident when things do get tough?
Church. Churches. I also I've started back. The volleyball is one thing. Um, I'm back like walking and working out because you need something to release the energy and to keep your mind going. And I found when my kids were little and I was working a lot of hours, I was not getting it. And I gained
Mhm.
weight, and it was all the things. And I'm like, I'm back on my kick now. I was like, I lost 40 pounds in the last year and a half. I'm like, you
Mhm.
gotta take care of yourself. And it does get hard. I like to read. I'm a sleeper too, because I believe if I don't get sleep, I'm nothing nice. So I
Mhm.
got to get 7 hours. I know that about myself. Um, I don't keep my work phone. I did for a little bit, but it was a stressful period. I don't keep my work phone in my bedroom, right? Having some
Mhm.
separation and I tell people, I'm gonna put it in my office when I'm finished working for the night, and I'm not gonna answer it, right? It's charging, and I'm upstairs in my room, and I'm not gonna. And you have to set boundaries on what are your cutoff times so you can have that time to
Mhm.
decompress.
Wow, I appreciate you saying that and realizing, and I hope everyone else on the call also realize that it can be hard to really set those boundaries, but if you don't take care of yourself first, you can't pour from an empty cup. So I really appreciate you saying that, highlighting that, and getting to the CEO position and realizing, yeah, I'm still going to set those boundaries even though I'm supposed to be in the know and be on call and all these other things. It's very important to segment that and just say, hey, I clocked out for the night. Whatever happens, it's going to happen. I can handle it the next day.
Yeah, there's some extenuating circumstance like when I was selling the business, but when I took over as
Hmm.
CEO, it was funny. My private equity was is based in California, and the previous
Hmm.
CEO was in California. So they started
Yeah.
calling me. They were used to talking to him at 4 o'clock their time. It's 7 o'clock my time. So the
Hmm.
first couple of times I answered the phone at 7, and I'm sitting at the dinner table with my kids. And then I
Hmm.
was like, I answer, I'll call you back, or I didn't answer. And then I started
Hmm.
being like, so I'll call you at 10. And then he was like, is that your time or my time? And I was like,
Yep.
and then I was like, so our core hours of talking, let's talk between 10 and 2 your time. Right? Because he's not gonna remember my time. So 10 and 2.
Hmm.
Those
Hmm.
that work for you, that works for me. Right.
Yep.
And then he was good. Right. There are some times that he would be outside that window and it's fine, but right, setting this is the normal of what I like.
Hmm. I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. And then talking about building those habits that conjure and contribute to your behavioral health and your health and mental health overall. What's another small habit that has made a big impact on your success?
I say check-ins and check-ins with my team
Hmm.
and check-ins with my boss. right? To make sure
Mhm.
you're focused on the right things. And also as a leader, I started doing what we call skip levels, or now my team is really large and I do skip levels plus all hands, right? Because I want to, the leaders, right? We're tainted after a while. We all are. The things that we want and what we want to bubble up, our favorite people,
Mhm.
that's who we talk about. And I like to be like, okay, let's go down a little bit more. What are the
Mhm.
people really thinking so that you can really understand? Because otherwise you're living in this bubble up here of whatever my four direct reports tell me of my whole 400 people in the organization, right? And it's I got a little bit of a up because I got to we have new leaders in my organization and I got to choose a lot of them. But if I
Mhm.
because just for various reasons other people had left, but if I had come in the organization 6 months earlier, it's all people who've been there forever. What do you think they were going to do? They were going to tell me what they wanted, which is what they've been doing the last 10 years. This is what you need to focus on. This is right. And the rest of the organization is like, no, we really want to change that. We don't like that. And if you don't get down to different levels as a leader, you won't really understand ground truth. Your leadership team could be telling you the truth, but I always say verify.
Absolutely. And what's one thing that you hope that every woman here takes away from your story today?
You can do it. We as women, we will see a job posting and say we have to have everything on that list satisfied before we apply for a job. And I'm going to tell
Mhm.
you, a man will see one thing and he will apply all
Mhm.
day, every day. And
Mhm.
so don't let what's written on a piece of paper limit you. What's the worst that could happen? You just don't get the interview, right? And I always say, even if you get the interview, it gives you the opportunity to practice the interview, understand how you're being perceived. So even if you interview for a leadership role and you don't get them, ask them for feedback. Did you
Mhm.
ramble? Could they not follow what your answers were? Did they say you had a weakness in certain areas so that you can learn how to get the position that you want? But they apply for everything. Everything.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. We need to start doing the same.
Yes. We
And
be looking to satisfy everything on the list plus the preferred. You don't need to do all that.
exactly. Exactly. And so how do you go about defining your success now? And has that definition changed at all over time?
It has. As a when I first started being a leader, it was really about what I was doing personally and what my team was doing. And it was very Tameika driven. Driven as in I'm doing it or right. I'm telling you, go do these things, right? And come back and report to me. Go do this, right? As you lead larger organizations, it's you can't do everything. And so how do you influence? How do you empower? How do you give direction? And then you got to be over here this other thing,
Mhm.
right? You can't have your hands in everything. And so right, it's you can't control it all. You can influence it, but you can't touch it all. And so that's something you got to learn how to influence.
I love that. That's something that I'm working on right now is the balance between delegation and then also trying to empower my team so that they'll take the initiative and just like almost think what I would want to happen and make that thing happen. So I appreciate you touching on that because I'm like on the edge of my seat, like, yes, please talk on this and please speak on this. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, when I was at the CEO of Illuminate, they were like, I got Tameika's questions down. And I was like,
Hmm.
okay, great. I was like, they're like, we got all the stuff. It's in the PowerPoint for you. And I was like, good. Now I can go to the next level of questions of have you thought about this, and this, right? Because
Hmm.
it's also about, right, you're empowering them to be leaders too, right? They have their own thoughts. We're all shaped by our experiences, right? So I'm sharing my experience with them with the questions that I'm asking, right? And then they
Hmm.
have their own thought process. And both of those together just covers
Mm-hmm.
more area, right? And so they're, oh, she got some new questions. And I was like, they were already back here. I just didn't want to overwhelm you too much, right?
That is hilarious. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you a few questions that our audience has put into the chat or they
Okay.
have submitted prior to when they registered for the event. First question is, what entry points do you see for those transitioning into tech from a non-traditional or science-heavy background?
So I would say this is a good time. Um, there are tech is in everything now, right? Tech is in healthcare, tech is in techie, what we're used to. Everybody thinks that tech is part of just how you do your job. What I would say is, what are your adjacencies? So if you are have been working in healthcare, can you think about going into health IT related things, health systems, that
Mm-hmm.
your background in health will help you think about how what kind of tools that you know they need. If
Mm-hmm.
you were right in food science, because I have a friend in that, right? How are you thinking about how they test? Are there ways that AI could help them test more effectively, right? How do you draw those connections? NASA, it was interesting. I went to our Houston facility and looked at some of the things we're doing in NASA. And they were like, yeah, Tameika, we're doing human exploration, is what happens there, right? Sending the astronauts up. And she was like, we hire all types of doctors and this people and this people. I was like, wow. If you're in business or HR, all companies need those functions, contracts. So there's also the opportunity to take your background of whatever function you're in and get into the company you like, and then take training once you get there. Because there's always jobs that are only posted internally at companies that you'll get a
Mm-hmm.
leg up on once you're already there. And there's nothing wrong with asking, can I shadow you for a day? Right? You're not
Mm-hmm.
That'll be a vacation day or a flex day, but the person that you ask will be honored, right? And you can ask them, can you pick a day that you think would benefit me? Because I'm interested in whatever your career, or interested in trying to get into manufacturing, or I'm interested trying to get into IT. What are some meetings that you have that you think it would be good for me to shadow? Or, right,
Mm-hmm.
if it's not a whole day, over the next month, can you think about meetings that I could potentially come with you to? Right? It allows you to see what the person does, meet other leaders or adjacent leaders in the organization, and then get a feel for how the company works. Now, some
Mm-hmm.
people are going to say no. I remember one of the mentors I asked one time to be my mentor. He was like, because I told you about the mentors that look like me, but I have mentors who don't look like me. And it's important, right? Because they also give me the other perspective. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my first director, I was working for somebody else and we became mentors, and he still stayed my mentor. And he was the one who told me about how bonuses work at Northrop. And I was like, really?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And he let
Mm-hmm.
me in the fence. And I was like, oh, so I was dangerous then. And
Mm-hmm.
15 years later, I was his boss.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so we had a great relationship. But right, that's why I said that peer and you don't know. I was like, you gonna burn now. I ain't say I didn't burn no bridges with people. Like there was some people I was just like, no. But whenever possible, we were like, don't be the person that everybody has your tire prints on their
Mm-hmm.
back.
Absolutely. And there is a general question here. Do you have and then we'll get to audience questions. Do you have a quota for how many jobs someone should be applying to weekly if they're trying to land a new role?
Yes. So actually, when I was looking, I had told myself I was going to take 6 months off from when I transitioned the company. I took 5, but it takes a while, right? So if you're looking or you're thinking about it, I used to say 5 a week, and because sometimes you can't, if you're working right now, you don't necessarily have the time every day to devote to it. So either
Mm-hmm.
pick a time. Is it Sunday nights? I'm going to get on LinkedIn and I'm going to do research companies, right? And I'm going to apply. But if you're serious, Yeah. I mean, and at the executive level, one of the executive recruiters, I was like, really? He was like, every day, Tameika, you should be talking to somebody, if not two people a day. And I was like, wow. I didn't have the
Hmm.
bandwidth for that. I was still trying to enjoy myself, but that was his rule, really. I know I was like, this is tiring. All the coffees and the virtual meeting.
Hmm.
But he was like, that was his, he was like every day, he was saying once a day, but I say 5 a week. If you're looking, and I'll say, don't make the mistake, ladies. Um, you need to research the company. The worst thing I've had is I've had somebody interview with me, so that was a leadership role, and then say, "Ooh, I I'm not really sure. I think aerospace does this," and I'm like, in this day and age,
Yep.
I mean, it was a question, and I was just like, it shouldn't be a question. You could ask for
Hmm.
specifics, but I mean, there's so much technology out here. Don't be that person.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Oh my goodness, so much rich content, so many gems being dropped, and I wish we had another hour. So, but I know you're busy, trying to be mindful of everyone's time. So let's jump into the audience Q&A. Feel free to either raise your hand or come off mute and ask your question.
It's your time, ladies.
I have a
I know,
question.
actually. Okay, there you go. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Cecily, and I'm working with the volunteer management with KP. I spent most of my career working in quality assurance. I was a specialist at 2 level. So I have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree I cannot complete because I don't have the money for it. But I when I wanted to go up to the engineering position, I am limited because I don't have those math and science. I have a political science degree with mass communication and public administration for grad school. So I don't know if I should just go ahead and apply, but I wanted to work as an engineer, and I was working as an engineer. I was doing testing and building, but just that title alone has been somewhat of a struggle for me. So that's why I'm interested in cybersecurity, which a lot of the things I did in my last role are also very, heavily represented. So I guess my
Hmm.
question is, how do you a confidence thing, I guess.
I hear it. I hear that confidence because you were
Yeah.
like, I want to apply, but I didn't. And I would
Yes,
say
that's me.
apply,
Uh-huh.
right? And I will say engineers can be snobs
Mm.
because I get more. I brag all day about FAMU. And usually when I brief the chart, I forget about Harvard almost every time. And people are like, and I was like, yeah, I know people love seeing it though, but that's not
Hmm.
right. And I would say IT is an easier thing now to get into. Engineering, the connotation has
Mm-hmm.
stigma on. You went to Michigan, you went to MIT. I'm not gonna kid you with that.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
you can get it. You could have an easier foothold coming
Mm-hmm.
in either IT or mission assurance, and then moving your way over once you prove your capability. Once you get in the
Mm-hmm.
in the company, but
Yeah.
when you're at, even when we were at just becoming everything you are in December, I mean in February,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, we're like, what's your major, right? What did
Yeah.
you get your degree in? And so
Mm-hmm.
it'll be hard for you to make it past the
Mm-hmm.
screeners
Mm-hmm.
if for an engineering position without
Mm-hmm.
that type of degree.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely see that. And that's what kind of brought me here too, is I'm interested in cybersecurity. I worked in health information. I was,
Yeah.
and I think that maybe if I got to do a little more digging professionally and think about, those are skills that are necessary for a lot of
Yes.
and
Absolutely.
with my graduate education, it was kind of like piecing all these things together. I'm finding out now who I am and, what I need. I need the same work-life balance. I don't want to be Saturday answering calls at 7:30 when I'm headed to take my mom somewhere.
Hmm.
So that was really great. And then I did just want to thank you. I don't know why this is making me so happy, but it was really nice to hear your journey, and I appreciate it.
No, thank you, ladies. The one thing I'll say, if you're looking for a job, when I was looking for this one, before I even picked the company, I wrote down the type of company I wanted, the size of it, like just
Mhm.
roughly, the location, what I wanted to do, out, all of those things. And then it helped me narrow down when you see things come in, nope, it doesn't fit. And it was interesting. I had forgotten about the list and it's in my phone. And like a month ago, I went and looked back at it and I was like, wow, I,
Mhm.
right?
Yep, manifestation is powerful.
It does. Yeah, write it down.
I love that. Thank you so much, Tameika, for joining us today and dropping so much rich content. If
Mm.
our audience has additional questions, are you fine with us sending them to you via email?
Yes. Be
Okay,
patient with
perfect.
me, but
Yes.
yes.
Yes, as you all can tell, she's a very busy woman. We were lucky to have her for this hour block. Can you wrap up? Go ahead and, whatever you closing remarks you would like to share. I would also like to ask if there is a podcast in addition to that book you shared. Are there any podcasts that you're enjoying right now? But yes, go ahead and wrap up the meeting, please.
I actually haven't gotten into the podcast. A lot of people have been
Okay.
telling me to do that. I've been
Hmm.
thinking about it now that we're going back in the office more because I drive to Crystal City with an hour for an hour. So if you guys
Hmm.
have any that you recommend, I look at leadership ones. I said that was something I was gonna do. A lot of times I talk to girlfriends in the morning on the way to work
Hmm.
that I have it. That's how we stay connected when we're all getting dressed or driving to work. And
Okay,
usually on the way
nice.
home, I'm picking up my sons. I'm still on work calls. Um, the thing I would say is the work-life balance does flex. I mean,
Hmm.
when you're proving yourselves, there's gonna be times where there's hard hours. I would say the thing is to level it out so that you don't burn out.
Hmm.
And it can happen in any field, and so you just need to be mindful of that. And I would say apply for the jobs. Apply for the
Hmm.
jobs. Be confident. You can do it.
Hmm. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for
Thank
taking some
you.
time to meet with us today and looking forward to having you back very soon because I know you have so much more to share. And I just want to thank you from our audience as well. They said this was very enjoyable, informative lunch and learn. Thanks for the gems and wisdom. And thank you, thank you, thank you. We look forward to seeing you again next time, and we'll be speaking with you again soon. And also, everyone have a great week. And thank you all for attending. And we will see you at our next Lunch and Learn planned for June.
All
Thanks,
right.
ladies.
Have a
Have a good
nice day,
weekend.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.